Hey folks, I'm not going to bother with introductions. You're going to get to that in due course here. I forgot to turn on my blue good microphone for this reading. This is how it will sound from here on out once I remember to do that, but the following reading is of poor quality and I apologize for that. I've been drinking. Enjoy this next recording if you decide to continue on from here. It's done with a laptop mic. Thanks for sticking around.
Hello everybody, my name is Steven Wynne, and you're joining me for a reading of Dancing with Demons, the Music's Real Master by Jeff Godwin. Now, I'm going to be reading this straight from the book. I'm going to be laughing at certain passages that are blatantly fucking ridiculous, and I'm probably going to be drinking through most of this. Right now I have a nice Southern Tier IPA and a shot of Chivas Regal, and if I mispronounced that, I don't care. We're about to do this. It's New Year's Eve. And I got this for Christmas. I hope it's good. I hope you all enjoy it very much. I'm going to start this off right now with a shot, and we're going to dive straight in with About the Cover in Chapter 1. Join me, won't you? That's good stuff. Dancing with Demons, the Music's Real Master, by Jeff Godwin. Copyright 1988 by Jeff Godwin. Chick Publications. All rights reserved, blah blah blah, yada yada yada. I legally shouldn't be doing this. About the cover. Who is that grotesque creature on the cover of this book? If you are an avid fan of heavy metal, Christian rock, rap, or several other forms of today's supposedly safe popular music, he is the god you worship. He is the god of rock and roll, a Greek deity named Pan. Quote, Pan is represented as more or less bestial in shape, having the horns, legs, and ears of a goat. End quote. Citation. I don't know. The entire rock world is a massive cult dedicated to him. Multiplied millions of young people are being sacrificed to this master demon as they pass through the fires of rock. Here are just a few examples of famous rock stars paying tribute to the one they serve, Pan. Paul McCartney. There is an interesting picture on his Pipes of Peace album. In his left hand, McCartney is holding a musical instrument called a syrinx, or panpipe. The Encyclopedia Britannica says that an Arcadian deity named Pan was, quote, the lover of a nymph syrinx, panpipe, close brackets, end quote. It goes on to say that Pan can make men, quote, stampede in terror, end quote, citation, blah, blah, blah. How typical of Satan's work. McCartney's album is titled Pipes of Peace, but the demon Paul is paying homage to causes panic terror. The joke's on us. The Rolling Stones. Their 1981 Tattoo You album contained a full inside cover photo of a cloven-hooved goat's foot. Open bracket. Pan has the horns, legs, and ears of a goat. Citation. Former occultist David J. Meyer describes Pan as a principality of Satan who appears at witch-coven meetings either in his goat form or as a violent cloud. End bracket. Quote, citation. Make sense of that, what you will. One of the founding members of the Rolling Stones was a wicked man named Brian Jones. In 1969, he journeyed to Morocco, Africa, to attend an occult festival dedicated to Pan that was being held by the Jojuka tribe. Drugs and music were a part of the ceremonies to bring up the demons who were being worshipped. Because there's other demons, not just Pan, and Pan was based in Africa, of course. Jones later released the, quote, music, end quote, in an album titled Brian Jones Presents the Pipes of Pan. Elton John. This bisexual rock star commissioned a special family crest to be made for himself in 1987. Guess who the most prominent figure on that crest is? The Greek god Pan, complete with hooves, horns, and syrinx. Duran Duran. Of the biggest names in pop rock during the early 80s. One of the biggest names, that's it, okay. One of the biggest names in pop rock during the early 80s. Some members of the group quit to form a new band named Arcadia, which just happens to be the section of ancient Greece where Pan was worshipped. There's a quotation or citation mark there. It was also the seat of Pan's power. Rush. These heavy metal stars put out an album in 1976 titled 2112, with a 5-pointed star inside a circle on the cover. One song on the record was called The Priests of Syrinx. What a coincidence! Ha! Led Zeppelin. Brace yourselves, this one's good. These rock gods wrote the biggest-selling single in rock and roll history, not including Candle in the Wind by aforementioned Elton John. Back to the text. Referring to Pan, the Encyclopedia Britannica says, quote, "He is a piper," end quote. Keep that in mind as you read these lyrics from Stairway to Heaven. Quote, "And it's whispered that soon, if we all call the tune, then the piper will lead us to reason." Ellipses for missing content. Your head is humming, and it won't go, in case you don't know. The piper's calling you to join him. Ellipses for missing content, end quote. How strange that the lyrics from that song and the Encyclopedia Britannica have so much in common. Now we're going to break from this narrative to relay those two sets of quotes for you. How strange that the lyrics from that song and the Encyclopedia Britannica have so much in common. Now, we're going to go back through those, starting with the Zeppelin lyrics that are split up. They tore a couple verses apart. And it's whispered that soon, if we all call the tune, then the piper will lead us to reason. Your head is humming and it won't go, in case you don't know. The piper's calling you to join him. Now, that has so much in common with, quote, "He's a piper," end quote. Going to colloquialisms, breaking it down. Led Zepp founder Jimmy Page are followers of the dead Satanist Aleister Crowley, who was also a Pan worshipper. At Crowley's funeral in 1947, his disciples were instructed to read aloud a poem he had composed himself called Hymn to Pan. And there's no citation there, so I guess we're just taking his word on that. Throughout this book, you will see the vast majority of today's popular music is pure praise and worship directed towards the Greek god Pan and his ultimate master, Satan. Young person, don't you be one of the gullible ones who burn in the flames at the altar of Pan. Please, don't dance with the demons. That's the introduction to Dancing with Demons, the Music's Real Master, by Jeff Godwin. I hope you're ready for Chapter 1, Burning Down the House. I'm going to take a drink. Join me. Good times, folks. Hope you're enjoying your New Year's. Chapter 1, Burning Down the House. Quote, "And they have built the high palace, starting again, please hold. Quote, And they have built the high places of Tophet, which is in the valley of the son of Hinnom, to burn their sons and their daughters in the fire, which I commanded them not, neither came it into my heart. Jeremiah, chapter 7, verse 31. Quote, burn out the day, burn out the night. I can't see no reason to put up a fight. I'm living for giving the devil his due, and I'm burning for you, ellipses for missed content. End quote. Blue Oyster Cult citation. If I told you that millions of children have been burned alive and sacrificed on an altar dedicated to demons, how would you react? Would disgust and rage fill your heart? Would you rush out to break up and burn those bloody altars to ashes? Before you say yes, be prepared to hear that the abominations which are destroying your children can be found in your very home. The monster I'm referring to is Rock. 3 generations have openly worshipped at the high places of rock and roll, and a 4th is well on the way. Amid the flames of perversity, blasphemy, obscenity, and cruel deception, our children are burning in agony before our very eyes. We allowed those high places to be built. We turned our backs as the high priests of rock reached out for yet another sacrifice. Our kids. We've paid the price long enough. There is one rule we should never forget. Rock is rock. Rock is rock. Whether it's called soft rock, acid rock, punk rock, or Christian rock, we are still dealing with music more ancient than the classics, rooted in the druid demon worship of Celtic England and baptized in the voodoo ceremonies of Africa and the Caribbean. Satan's rock rules the world. There is a spiritual power to this music, a power that does not come from God. Some try to clean it up, tone it down, or even claim it for the Lord. But rock music never changes, no matter how it's perfumed. There are 2 massive and immovable pillars of rock: rebellion and hunger. Rebellion is the coal that feeds that hungry fire. Just like hell, rock and roll is never satisfied. It is constantly enlarging itself. Quote, hell and destruction are never full, so the eyes of man are never satisfied. Proverbs 27:20. While some debate the pros and cons, stumble through the moral gray areas, and preach a compromising tolerance, more young souls plunge headlong into the flames. While we argue, they burn. This has all happened before. In the southern kingdom of ancient Judea, during the time of the prophet Jeremiah, God's chosen Jewish race had sunk to the lowest depths of depravity. Thanks to the introduction of pagan Baal worship, Jehovah was left in the dust by his rebellious and hard-hearted children. Hordes of pagan gods filled the land, each more brutal than the last. Ashtoreth, Chemosh, Molech. They demanded blood, fire, and the tortured death of innocent children. Their worship was celebrated by a mass sexual perversity unknown since Sodom and Gomorrah. Just south of Jerusalem lay the valley of Hinnom, where the night skies were continually lit by the flames of human sacrifice. Quote, yea, they sacrificed their sons and their daughters unto devils, and shed innocent blood, even the blood of their sons and of their daughters, whom they sacrificed unto the idols of Canaan. The land was polluted with blood. Psalm 106, 37 and 38. At the high place of Tophet, the word Tophet has to do with the beating of a drum. The pagan priests carefully constructed stairways, altars, and fire pits for the frenzied rites of Molech worship. A huge hulking metal image of this horned demon was the centerpiece of this ghastly place. Molech's a fucking owl. As the drums pounded like enormous, overworked hearts ready to burst. It sounds like he was really there. Musical instruments of all kinds were frantically blown and trumpeted to drown out the throat-shedding screams of dying children. Worshippers added their own howls to the chaos as they sang and wailed, quote, hymns, unquote, to the demon that they were devouring their precious young. It's no wonder that Hinnom eventually became known as Gehenna, a term synonymous with hell. Actually doesn't read the Old Testament. Today, the music still plays while children go up in smoke, once perceived to be only a distasteful social phenomenon. Rock and roll is really one of the most enslaving, destructive, and deceptive devil tools of all time. It changes colors like a snake shedding its skin. It calls evil good and good evil. It changes titles and terms of descriptions to deceive genuine Christians. Rock and roll is the modern equivalent of the Valley of Hinnom. The rock concert stage is today's high place of Tophet. The rock stars are the bug-eyed priests, and our young people are being the sacrificial babes. By giving up their awesome responsibility to spiritually guard and protect their children, parents are literally throwing their kids into the fire as the music muffles their scream. That's not what literally... Okay. By giving up their awesome responsibility to spiritually guard and protect their children, parents are literally throwing their kids into the fire as the music muffles their screams. I'm just gonna keep moving. Sorry, folks. If God's people ever needed the discernment of the Holy Spirit, mixed with the righteous anger of the Almighty, that time is now. The following fact needs to be stated clearly and repeated often. Music may be many things, but it is never neutral. Rock defenders point to dead objects, like an axe or a butcher. Rock defenders point to dead objects, like an axe or a butcher knife, and say, those things can be used to chop wood, cut cake, or kill your mother-in-law. It's the intention of a person's heart that makes the difference. The same holds true for music. That's what we say. No, it doesn't. Okay. Pause for drink. Okay. Oh. No, that's good. Music is not a piece of wood or chunk of steel waiting to be used/abused by whoever picks it up. Music has a life of its own. Since music is a spiritual creation, it will always strike a positive or negative chord within our spirits. Enough evidence now exists to clearly show that when rock is played, our bodies, minds, and spirits suffer. Proof? Over a decade ago, a woman named Dorothy Ritalik conducted experiments with music, plants, and their combined environment. The results are famous. She exposed one set of bean sprouts, morning glories, and other plants to non-stop rock as they grew. Another set heard placid, devotional, religious music. Within 10 days, the first rock-drenched beans tried to escape from the music by growing away from the source. They became stunted, wilted, and eventually died. Group number 2, on the other hand, flourished under a steady diet of godly music, growing toward the source as they thrived and bloomed. Toward is in all caps. The lesson here is very simple. If rock music attacks, stunts, and kills plants, what is it doing to people? The answer is obvious. The same thing. Open bracket. I don't think the plants really cared about the words either. It's the music that killed them. Close bracket. Rock music has also been found to cause chemical imbalances in the human body. The bass tones and driving drum beats of modern rock have been proven to demonstrate a reaction with the cerebral spinal fluid and the pituitary gland of the brain. When exposed to rock, the adrenaline and sex glands over-secrete. Their hormonal production is pushed into overdrive. This is why concert-going crowds, quote, bang their heads, end quote. Raise their fists and destroy the arena. When exposed to rock, the adrenaline and sex glands over-secrete. Their hormonal production is pushed into overdrive. This is why concert-going crowds, quote, bang their heads, end quote, raise their fists, and destroy the arena. I'd say you can't make this up, but someone clearly did. It's also why feelings of lust and sensuality wash over everyone there. Since the body's hormones are unbalanced, it compensates by drawing blood sugar from the brain to bring everything back into alignment. Since blood sugar is the primary material used by the brain to feed itself, a lack of decision-making ability is the inevitable result. Is that, anyone care to jump in on that? Okay, back to the text. Rock listeners, take note. You're being hit with a 1-2-3 punch. At the same time your heart starts thumping and your sex glands go into warp drive, you lose your cool, calm, rational ability to think straight. And that's just the physical effects. We haven't discussed the spiritual, demonic attack that follows. An Australian doctor named John Diamond has conducted physical strength experiments using the stopped anapestic rhythm of rock music. Groups that use such beats include the Rolling Stones, the Eagles, Elton John, the Doors, Janis Joplin, and Stevie Wonder, plus many others, in hundreds of tests on humans. Using rock music and an electronic strain gauge, Diamond made 3 powerful conclusions. 1. More than 90% registered an instant loss of 2/3 of their normal muscle strength while listening to rock. Okay. More than 90% of what? He never mentions anything. Hundreds of tests on humans. I don't know. Okay, whatever. Number 2, Haitian voodoo Number 2, Haitian voodoo drum music has the same rhythms as rock. And 3, above a certain decibel level, the same muscle weakening occurs regardless of the rhythm. As if this wasn't enough, Dr. Diamond also concluded that a phenomenon called switching occurs in those listening to the stopped anapestic beats of rock music. A mix-up in alpha waves between the 2 hemispheres of the brain results in the same brain wave synchronization found in schizophrenics and babies. Okay. Rock music neutral? Not hardly. What about the spiritual side of this question? In 1 Samuel chapter 16, verse 23, we read the famous account of King Saul and the young musician David. Saul was changed when David played. This was godly music. Godly is in all caps. Why? First, Saul was, quote, refreshed, end quote. The Hebrew word being, quote, ravak. Ravix, in all caps, end quote. Meaning, quote, to breathe freely, end quote. This shows that the music refreshed the king's physical body! Physical body is in all caps. We also see that Saul was, quote, well, open bracket, Hebrew, Tob! End quote. Tob is in all caps, which means to, quote, to be, open bracket, make, closed bracket, well, good, or better, end quote citation. Thus, Saul's mind was made well by David's music. Thirdly, the, quote, evil spirit departed, end quote, as a result of David's harpistry. The meaning here is literal and self-evident. Conclusion? Godly music refreshes the body, makes the mind well, and drives away evil spirits. See 1 Thessalonians 5:23. What about ungodly music, then? Un is in caps, not godly. That's why it's broken up like that. 1. Rock has been proven to harm and destroy the body. 2. Rock hypnotizes the mind. 3. Rock attracts evil spirits, as anyone who has ever repented of it knows too well. How then can something as ungodly as rock music be made holy and good with a change of lyrics as defenders of Christian rock claim? It can't. The Big Three. Satan has a three-pronged process he uses through all of rock music to destroy young people and their families. Sex, drugs, and rock and roll, the battle cry of an entire generation. While youngsters you can't see it, but the person used 3 fucking spaces after a period in here. That's just bad formatting. While youngsters fight for their right to have all 3, Satan is using these weapons to wipe out millions of unsuspecting souls. Here's how. I'm gonna take a drink of alcohol before I continue on with this, because I'm right and godly. Good enough. Sex! All the smutty and degenerate emphasis on sexual lust and rock music is designed to fire up teenage imagination and hormones, leading to active fornication. Why is Satan so interested in getting kids sexually active? Because immoral sex serves a specific purpose: to spread demons. Demons are a venereal disease in the truest sense. Since those engaged in sexual union are one flesh physically, whatever demons are lodging in either body are free to pass back and forth, attracting others at the same time. That's why we have such dire warnings against consorting with adulteresses and prostitutes in Proverbs 6:20-32 and 7:1-27. And they go on to list a wonderful Bible quote, But whoso committeth adultery with a woman lacketh understanding. He that doeth destroyeth his own soul. Proverbs chapter 6, verse 32. The Apostle Paul further explains this thought of bodily and spiritual pollution through fornication in 1 Corinthians chapter 6, verses 15-20. Know ye not that your bodies are the members of Christ? Shall I then take the members of Christ and make them the members of an harlot? Of an harlot. I don't know. God forbid. What? Know ye not that he which is joined to an harlot is one body? For 2, saith he, shall be one flesh. But he that is joined unto the Lord is one spirit. Flee fornication. Every sin that a man doeth is without the body, but he that committeth fornication sinneth against his own body. For ye are bought with a price. Therefore glorify God in your body and in your spirit, which are God's. End quote. Wild and unchained sex is a hallmark of both the rock lifestyle and true Satanism. Witches call it, quote, allowing the astral forces to move freely among us, end quote. But demonic infestation is the real objective. Keeping sons and daughters sexually pure until marriage is one of the greatest challenges facing parents today. Yep. One good way is to pull the plug on rock music. Drugs. There is a perfect parallel between drugs, rock music, and bona fide Satanism. Hallucinogenic drugs are a basic part of satanic rituals and devil orgies. Rock music has openly promoted mind-expanding drugs for over 20 years, but not because they're a good way to expand your own consciousness. A person's altered state of consciousness when they are high on drugs is just a fancy way of describing a rocket ride straight into the spiritual world where demons exist and travel. The more often you vacation in this deadly fairyland, the closer you get to hell. Some of the biggest names in rock have died of drug overdoses using such hallucinogenic dreams. Now they'll burn in eternal flames with Satan forever. Every parent's greatest fear is to learn that their child is on dope. Take action today. That's never not going to be funny. Take action today by banning rock music from your home, school, and church. Rock and roll. Rock music is the first and last step in Satan's destruction of youth. Piped in from hell, rock's pounding rhythms are the same as those used in voodoo rituals. Quote from an unnamed source: the follower of voodoo seeks to incorporate a LOA, lesser god, into himself by writhing and leaping through a dance while drums bang out complex rhythms. When just the right rhythm is found for an individual LOA, the dancer takes it up, and the LOA enters his soul. I guess women aren't included in this. His physical and mental powers are immediately heightened. He becomes God, like himself. Animals will often be sacrificed to appease the spirits. The religion is strictly Dionysian, and dances often end in wholesale copulation. End quote. Wholesale copulation. Figure that out. The bridge between actual voodoo and modern rock came through a style of music known as the blues. Filled with themes of fornication, murder, adultery, and hopeless despair. The blues was made popular in the 1930s, 40s, and 50s by dozens of black performers. I'm channeling the guy, that's how he meant it. Many of these men met the same violent deaths they so frequently sang about. These blues pioneers took the ancient tribal sounds of their African ancestors and turned them into a new and widespread form of musical voodoo. The message was utterly negative, and the music was rooted in witchcraft. When white rock superstars like Led Zeppelin, The Who, and the Rolling Stones recycled the blues into their own electrified blast, a whole generation of young people fell under the spell of Satan's special beat. As blues trailblazer Muddy Waters tells it, quote, the big drop after the beat on the drum formed the foundation of my blues. Nothing fancy, just a straight heavy beat with it. But you see, blues is tone. Deep tone with a heavy beat. I kept that backbeat on the drums, plus full action on the guitar and harmonica and the piano in the back. Then you got a big sound. End quote, citation. I'm sorry if that was bad. I just wanted a different... I like Muddy Waters. Here's how rock guitar god Jimi Hendrix described his own brand of electric blues. The blues are easy to play, but not to feel. The background of our music is a spiritual blues thing. Blues is a part of America. We're making our music into electric church music. A new kind of Bible. Not like in a hotel, but Did he say that? But a Bible you carry in your hearts. One that will give you a physical feeling. We try to make our music so loose and hard-hitting so that it hits your soul hard enough to make it open. It's like shock therapy or a can opener. Wow. That's not even this guy. That's a quote. Rock is technically blues-based. We want them to realize that our music is just as spiritual as going to church. End quote. A beat hard enough to crack open your soul? What more needs to be said? Many Christians know the story about an American missionary who took his family to Africa. One day, as the man's children blasted their rock records they had brought with them, terrified native tribesmen rushed up to the preacher, their faces full of fear. They asked him why he allowed his children to play music that was used to call up demons during voodoo rituals. This account has long been given to the horse laugh by rock addicts, especially by Christian rock defenders. An event in the wasted life of guitar god Jimi Hendrix, who suffocated to death on his own vomit in 1970, strikes at the heart of beat can't be evil controversy. In David Henderson's book, Excuse Me While I Kiss the Sky, we read about a young African musician who was much in demand on the rock recording sessions. I can't pronounce that. Zornu, I'm sorry. I wanted to read this cold for you people. Whom Hendrix called Rocky, was a gifted conga drum player that Jimi had met in London. Rocky was from the African country of Ghana. His father was the chief drummer and a voodoo high priest in a small village there. Rocky jammed often with some of the biggest names in popular music. Stars like the Rolling Stones, Jimmy Page of Led Zeppelin, and, of course, Hendrix himself. Early in their relationship, Rocky asked Jimmy where he learned the voodoo rhythms and dances that he used on stage and in the studio. Hendrix wouldn't say. According to Rocky, the rhythms of Hendrix's music were identical, all caps, to those used by his father during the demon-raising voodoo ceremonies. Rocky said that Jimmy's wild, in-concert leaps and primitive rhythmic movements, were the same as those used to worship Oxen, the pagan god of thunder and lightning. Quote, a demon. Skeptics want proof? Here it is! The son of a voodoo high priest saying rock and roll and a satanic song service to call up demons are the same thing. Rock's incredible volume, coupled with the screeching dissonance and the rhythmic beat of voodoo, form a battering ram that smashes into the listener's mind and spirit. Subliminals and backmasks pump Satan's messages into the brain and are combined with a fairly new development called ELF. Extremely low frequency. I'm just going to scream ELF because it's ELF in all capital letters. These are subsonic tones that cannot be heard, but are felt within your physical body. Go to a rock concert, and you'll feel the ELF literally move your internal organs around. Depending on the number of cycles per second, ELF can produce euphoria or violent, murderous reactions in those listening. Physically and mentally beaten to a pulp by all of this, the rock listener is left wide open for spiritual attack by demonic forces. That's been the purpose of rock and roll all along, to reprogram young minds along satanic lines through the spiritual assault of demons. Satan's plan is to wipe out entire generations of youth, turning them against their parents and, more importantly, against God. The devil is also using the same tactics to destroy Christian youth through so-called Christian rock. Young believers now bow before the altar of C-Rock, just as their unsaved counterparts worship the Motley Crues and Ozzy Osbournes. A clean-cut image and some religious words sweeten the description. Satan doesn't mind one bit, since he's still the one in charge. Fire. Rock music today is the modern version of Tophet's ancient cremations. Rock and roll relies heavily on the scenes of fierce, flaming, fiery destruction in all three phases of its production. Live concerts, song lyrics, and album packaging. Here are some examples. In 1968, an obscure English weirdo named Arthur Brown was one of the first devil rockers to integrate pyrotechnics into his stage show. Part of his hit single, Fire, he proudly paraded onto the stage having just set his head on fire. A dozen years ago, heavy metal hate-mongers like Kiss began the trend of blowing great billowing bursts of flames during their concerts. Today, none of the big names in rock would dare hit the road without their flame pots. Many have been well trained to vividly recreate hell in those concert halls. Motley Crue's 1983 Shouted the Devil album's centerfold features the group posed before burning brimstone amidst the caverns of Hades. The promotional package for the 1986 Judas Priest's Fuel for Life tour showed the boys in front of walls of licking flames as a monstrous hand prepares to pour gas on the fire. The Molech mentality of rock lyrics, both new and old, could fill pages. Here are just a few examples. Give Me Shelter by the Rolling Stones, 1969. Ooh, see, the fire is sweeping our very streets today. Burns like a red coal carpet. Mad Bull lost its way. They went with Gimme Shelter by the Rolling Stones and not fucking Sympathy for the Devil. Yeah? Moving on. War Pigs by Black Sabbath, 1970. Generals gathered in their masses, just like witches at black masses, evil minds that plot destruction, sorcerer of death's construction. In the fields the bodies burning as the war machine keeps turning. End quote. Cities on Flame by Blue Oyster Cult. My heart is black, my lips are cold, cities on fire with rock and roll. 3,000 guitars, they seem to crush, my ears will melt, and then my eyes. Ellipses for missing content. I guess it was one of those lyrics too expensive to reprint. Flaming Youth by Kiss, 1976. My parents think I'm crazy, and they hate the things I do. I'm stupid and I'm lazy. Man, if they only knew how Flaming Youth will set this world on fire. Flaming Youth, our flag is flying higher. Cook with Fire by Heart, 1978. I got the soul that's got the spark for you, holding a real hot wire. We've got a hungry flame in the dark, and Lord, we're going to cook with fire. Oh, listen to me. We're just going through song lyrics that have to do with lots of heat. Light Up the Sky by Van Halen, 1983. I heard the wind a-whispering, saw magic coming out for sure. Come see your children. They're lighting up the skies. You won't recognize them anymore. Fight Fire with Fire by Metallica, 1984. They're starting with an ellipses for missing content, which if you're starting by skipping shit, you're starting on poor footing. We all shall die. Time is like a fuse, short and burning fast. Armageddon is here, like said in the past. Fight fire with fire, ending is near. Fight fire with fire, bursting with fear. Ellipses for you're starting and ending with missing content. God damn it. Fucking Godwin, get on the goddamn ball. Sleeping with the Fire by Wasp, 1984. Taste the love, the Lucifer's magic that makes you numb. You feel what it does, and you're drunk on love. You're sleeping in the fire. I don't know what these quotes have anything to do with anymore, but there's like 2 left. Lighting the Fire by Barren Cross. Quote, open bracket, Christian rock group, close bracket, 1986. Light the flame, take hold and know my name. I long to give you the love that's in my hand. Light the flame, my gift to you has been paid. Receive the king and his crowns, await your stand. And the final quote, heralding Satan, is Venus by Bananarama, 1986. The quote, Jesus, I'm your Venus, I'm your fire, your desire. End quote. There's a fuck. In the occult, Venus, the bright morning altar, is another name for Lucifer. The nightmarish picture of burning souls entrapped in a world of flame is blaring from millions of stereos in teenage bedrooms all across America. Each one is an altar to Satan, dripping with the doctrines of devils. Is one of these blackened altars set up in your home? Even, it's all in caps, you know I was doing it. Even Christians are being sucked into this trap by mop-headed, spandexed Christian rockers who sell Jesus like a brand new and improved brand of soap. This idol worship will continue to flourish until Christian parents, especially fathers, that's okay, alright, mothers suck, apparently, rise up in righteous anger and say, quote, enough, end quote. Not all caps, though, that time. They let me down a bit. The words of the prophet Jeremiah are just as true today as when they first came from his lips. Quote, thus saith the Lord, stand ye in the ways, and see, and ask for the old paths, where is the good way, and walk therein, and ye shall find rest for your souls. But they said, we will not walk therein. Also, I set watchmen over you, saying, hearken to the sound of the trumpet. But they said, we will not hearken. Jeremiah chapter 6, verse 16 to 17. To confront evil is to fight it. To ignore it is sin. See James chapter 4, verse 17. I'm clearly too lazy to put it in the book. Every parent, pastor, and youth leader reading these words should immediately seek the Lord's guidance. Strap on the whole armor of God. Ephesians chapter 6, verse 12 to 18. Again, we couldn't get the copyrights to the Bible. Hold tight the sharp sword of the Spirit, and go forth to cleanse our land of the suicidal plague of rock and roll. The battle is spiritual. 2 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 3 to 5 again. And it begins at home. Matthew chapter 10, verse 36. The alternative is the music, the flames, and the dead children. The outcome is up to you. Thank you for joining me in a reading of Dancing with Demons by Jeff Godwin. Chapter 2, coming soon. Enjoy your new year.